Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of Panel to Panel. My name is Nick Graff, and I'll be your host for this episode. Joining me are two panelists. To my left, we have Jess Dingman, stand-up comedian and disgusting ball of slime. To my right, we have Samantha Patrone, cosplay extraordinaire. All right, first off, we're going to go ahead and launch this off into a very heated topic. Just recently, a famous comic book writer and movie writer, David S Goyer, has made some very troubling remarks about two popular comic book characters. The first and more aggravating of which is She-Hulk. Just to sum up, he was at a panel recently doing a podcast, and they were asked to comment on how they would do certain movies. She-Hulk was brought up, and he made disparaging remarks such as the real name for She-Hulk was Slut Hulk. She is a green porn star, and that she was simply created to allow Hulk to have somebody to pretty much have sex with, despite the fact that they're cousins. So, ladies, what are your thoughts on this topic? Let's go with Jess Dingman first.
Well, first of all, if someone is going to say all of these awful things about She-Hulk, like, She-Hulk wasn't a slut. I mean, she did something that Bruce Banner couldn't do. Like, she went for it and she accepted her mutation and she was strong with it. She wasn't like someone flimsy. She wasn't a slut. She didn't use her cousin in any way. She was her own woman. She was her own person. And if he's going to say shit like this about She-Hulk, it just has me worrying about what he's going to say about Wonder Woman. Like, if he's responsible for writing her, I'm worried. I'm not going to lie.
All right, Samantha, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm absolutely the same. David S. Goyer has absolutely solidified the fact that I will not go and see this movie in person at the theaters, not happening. And just the idea that Wonder Woman's first silver screen debut that is not Lego Movie is going to be written by this man who has absolutely no capacity for how women in comics should be treated is just, I'm concerned.
Not only that, but he alienates his fans, too. He didn't just insult comic book characters. He insulted his entire audience. Mm-hmm. I mean, what did he say about them? He said, like...
oh, yes. They bring up a second character of Martian Manhunter. Like I said, they were at a podcast, and they're discussing how screenwriters would bring these characters to life. And so he posed a question to the audience. How many of you have heard of Martian Manhunter? People raised their hands, and then his follow-up question was, of those who have raised their hands, how many of you have been laid?
You know what? Fuck that guy. Like, absolutely not. Like, this guy is, it's just, DC, if you're smart, you'll pull a plug on this dude. Like, I don't even care how wonderful, phenomenal person he might be by way of writing. Like, I wouldn't trust him with your characters, especially with, I mean, you have a lot of catching up to do when it comes to, catching up to Marvel in regards to the power of your movies. And I think that having someone like that who is going to take a female character who is beloved by many, many women and looked up to by many, many women and put her on the screen for the first time, either keep this guy on a tight leash or just axe him because he's a dumbass.
I feel like just because of this whole stunt that he's probably... all of DC has probably lost a lot of patrons at their movies. I mean, he insulted everyone, and he bashed characters that people really care about, and that's not going to do anything for you publicity-wise.
Mm-mm.
It's true. On that point, how do you feel his comments reflects society's view of women in comics?
Well, I think that it's obviously very telling with how men do view women in comic books. And not just the characters, but also, the creators of comic books have kind of weighed in on this and said, this is something that we see, and it's actually gotten worse in recent years because women have been much more prevalent in the genre. Women were always in the genre. Like, I got news for you, but the very first superhero to have a secret identity and a mask was created by a woman. The Scarlet Pimpernel, it was written by a baroness. So your genre of superheroes, which that book inspired Zorro, which later inspired Batman. So Zorro created Batman in a way, and Zorro was inspired by Scarlet Pimpernel. So
vis-a-vis transitive property.
Women did, in a way, kind of create that genre. And so I feel like shitting on women in this genre is a really stupid decision. I mean, we make up 51% of the planet. I think you need to be a little bit more equal when it comes to how you portray women in media. And comic books is a good way to start, and you're just not doing it. So.
And not just their personalities, like their figures are very masculine inspired in the way that it's exactly what a man would like. Like, you don't see a bigger person. You see the big boobs and you see the big hips and the little waist and someone that a man would find appealing. And it's awful. Like, real women don't look like that. Some do, and that's not to bash women that do look like that, but that's not all there is. And who's to say that only someone that looks like that can be a superhero? I think that anyone should be a superhero, and not just full-grown people, children too. Anyone can be a superhero if they've got the will to want to do it.
Right, and that's what I love so much about like the Hawkeye initiative as well, is where they show the ridiculous poses that they put these comic book women in, like complete disregard for their spines, complete disregard for physics in general and anatomy, and let's just put them in the most ridiculous pose. Like, no woman would ever sit like that, no woman would ever fight like that. The most skilled warriors would not fight like that. And of course the whole armor thing where we have, you have Sonya, Red Sonja, who's in like a scale mail bikini and like
Witchblade, who is just a strong female character who wields mystic powers. How many times, like how much of her cleavage is exposed in all of her incarnations?
She's got like, it's literally like spidering over the nipples. That's like it. Like there's just
whole costume is just like stripes.
Yeah.
Like, how's that gonna protect you?
But no, the perfect example of this would be Starfire. I mean, and their excuse, of course, is, well, she needs to absorb the powers of the sun. Yeah, I can think of a really popular guy who has to do that, too. And he's not running around with a boob
Birdman.
window.
No.
He's not running around with a boob window or with, all this hanging out. Like, nah, Superman's fully covered and he's absorbing the fun.
They did have his underwear on the outside for a really long time, though.
And that was scandalous. That was just straight up scandal.
Okay, totally scandalous, right.
I mean, him and Quailman, they forged ahead.
She's in straps. It's like, really? Straps? Like, and that's where I gotta give it to Marvel too, is like they take their women a little bit more seriously, but they're not in the right boat either. Like, we need to move more toward the women with practical outfits, and it's okay to put them in nice outfits. It's all right to put them in outfits that are skin tight or that are, because
that just seems to be the genre.
Appealing. That's fine, but practicality first, then design. Just please.
In addition to David Goyer's comments, someone else spoke up on behalf of She-Hulk and women in general. Stan the Man Lee. He actually tweeted, had a press release where he stated that anybody who thought that about She-Hulk was a nut. And he actually came to the defense that he wanted to write a stronger female character who started off as a lawyer, and that followed all throughout her written history. How do you ladies feel about the fact that there's been no comment whatsoever from DC about this? Jess?
I think it's awful that they wouldn't respond to something like that. I mean, obviously Stan Lee is a big name. He's going to grab attention, and if he's calling you out, you're going to want to respond to him, or people are going to look at you. It's just like, why wouldn't you respond? I mean, obviously you have some explaining to do. You need to cover your ass, so say something. Why aren't you saying anything?
And it wasn't even like the typical, oh, well, he's expressing views of his own, not the views of DC, but nothing's been said so far. And I feel that's going to put them in a bad light because of how many female writers they have already fired. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Sam?
No, I'm absolutely with you there. And even if it's not DC's views, yeah, this man is writing your next film, which is going to be the first time that Wonder Woman, your most popular female character, is ever going to be on the silver screen in live action. And the first time we've really seen her in live action since, I don't know, the TV show from how many decades ago? So you need to step it up. And again, either you need to put this guy on a leash, slap him on the wrist, or just get the hell rid of him. Like,
and not only did he write the script for Batman Superman, he did write the initial story, and they brought in another screenwriter to touch it up. But he is attached to be involved in the actual Justice League movie. Which brings up his next comment about a popular character from Justice League mythos, the Martian Manhunter. He goes on to state that if he was to write a Martian Manhunter movie, he would first drop the Martian in his name. He could just call it the Manhunter, and then he even states that his whole origin story of I'm going to come to Earth and live amongst humans and be a homicide detective is stupid because nobody could buy alien living on Earth amongst humans and blending in and learning our culture. I mean,
Superman.
Was that the Man of Steel here? I mean,
That's never happened before.
It's never happened.
Never heard of it.
And he even goes on to state that, I can go ahead and do this. He's not in popular culture. Nobody's really going to care if I reboot his history. And it's like, I'm sorry, did you guys ever see the Justice League show?
Yeah. I loved that show. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Martian Manhunter on screen, hopefully played by Idris Elba, because I think that would be really good. I've already mentioned this before.
Not just that, but I feel like the original writer of the comic would probably care if you went back and changed his character's history without, approving it first.
And I can understand if you're doing it from a logistical standpoint. I mean, especially with, and I'm going to bring up Iron Man 3, the way that they changed, the Mandarin. The Mandarin was created as a racist parody of the Asian cultures that we were then in a war with. We had to change that for the film because it was never going to fly. I can understand if they needed to make those kind of changes to make it acceptable for our time, but that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about completely stripping away a character's identity and just making it in his image. I mean, Manhunter? Really? Manhunter? Really?
Yeah, and if you're going to change a character's backstory, at least make it something good. Like, what he's proposing is something that's already been done before, and it's not even a good storyline. He was proposing that the Manhunter would be grown in a test tube in Area 51, and that's how he came into being. Like, are you kidding? That's awful, and it's been done in a million different sci-fi movies before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was it The Arrogance of Man? I mean, come on, like, that's already been done, which could bring us into our next topic.
Mm-hmm.
Godzilla. Godzilla just smashed the box office, literally. Pretty sure I saw the rubble under his foot. Opening weekend of 93 million.
Yeah, it beat out Captain America.
Knocked Captain America out of that spot. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I have heard a lot of complaints about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some good things, but I feel like there's more complaints, really. Mm-hmm. I've heard people are complaining about the way Godzilla looks, about how much screen time he's had, about how the story wasn't really about him. And I feel like if you're going to call a movie Godzilla, you should probably make the story about Godzilla.
It stands to reason. Have you seen it?
Yes. I feel like it did kind of have that sort of Transformers film feel in that it was more about, humans with guest starring the Transformers, which was the biggest complaint about Transformers 1. And so it was kind of the same way where it was human story guest starring Godzilla. But Godzilla is a sentient lizard creature. You can't...
His origin has changed. I think the most recent one was he was a Godzillasaurus.
Yeah.
Who was mutated by radiation from Hiroshima, and that's how he got so big.
It's not... You can't make a movie with just Godzilla, that much Godzilla, because he can't carry a story. He's not a creature that can talk. He's not a creature that can run his own story. You have to have a human element to the story in order to carry it. And a lot of people said that he only had like 6.5 minutes of screen time. But I sat through the film and I thought that there was, I felt like there was more Godzilla than I was expecting because I was already told before I saw it, there's less than 10 minutes of Godzilla in the film. But I still felt like it was a really good film, and I felt like it had that Godzilla vibe to it. I felt like I was sitting through a Godzilla film. I didn't feel like I was sitting through, Bayformers type thing. Like, I felt like it did do justice.
I didn't get that from people's comments. When I heard people saying, like, there's not enough Godzilla, I assumed they were saying, like, he wasn't practically in the storyline. I haven't seen it, but from what you're saying right now, I get how that would have been enough. Obviously, a character that can't speak wouldn't be very good to have in a full movie. If he's not doing something action-wise, all he can really do is, like, destroy stuff. He's not the silent film star Charlie Chaplin. Come on, what do you expect
he had some pretty good facial expressions in that movie. I'll give Godzilla that.
And the roar was good.
The roar was spot on. But there's a lot of people who are also complaining that yes, it was focused mostly on humans. the central story is that this creature is awoken and destroys a nuclear power plant, and then 15 years later, Godzilla comes back when these things start hatching, and oh my God, he's an alpha predator and has to kill these. A lot of people are saying that with a setup like that, you could have easily made the plot for humans that, okay, these creatures come through and they almost set up a meltdown. So the humans' drive is to prevent this meltdown, prevent the deaths of millions of people. Mm-hmm. And you can have Godzilla have his own story where he's trying to kill these things without it being focused solely on this one soldier who's trying to get back to his family.
Right, but again, I feel like the element, you need the human element there. It's an audience surrogate. I mean, if you try to picture a movie where you're just following this giant lizard around who cannot talk, and his facial expressions are limited by whatever CG they can do on that type of face that he has. It doesn't lend itself to emotion. So how in the world are you going to follow a story for this character? I mean, he's a giant lizard. You need someone that you can latch onto on the story, and you can look at Godzilla and think, wow, that guy's really cool, but you can't follow a story of Godzilla like that. You just can't.
I would like to propose this about the whole facial expressions with CG. I'm just saying, like, Benedict Cumberbatch did an amazing job with Smog. I'm just saying, like, I felt.
Yeah,
I felt things.
I'm with you there, but Godzilla's face doesn't lend to that like it does because he can't crack a smile like, Smog can. Like, you have that big mouth that you can do that with, and the eyes are much bigger, whereas, Godzilla's got these itty-bitty eyes.
Right.
And like
his bulk is in his body, not his face.
Yes, and speaking of bulk in the body.
Yes, there was a lot of disparaging comments coming out of Japan stating that this Godzilla was too fat, that it needed to hit a treadmill.
Who cares? Literally, who cares?
Real kaiju have curves, okay?
He's a lizard. And not just that, he's a giant fictional lizard. Who cares? Oh man, Godzilla's butt is so big. Let's boycott this movie. No! Calm down! Really? Really? I can't.
I'm just so amused that people care about the figure of a giant lizard with atomic breath. Like, really? Have we fallen so far? It's because of these comic book writers with these women with these tiny little waists, these big... Just slap a corset on him with a boob window and they'd be happy.
I don't hate it. I would see it.
For that moment, make him a big green porn star.
I mean, listen.
He's just a big green porn star anyway.
You know what it is? I guarantee you, David Goyer was actually talking about Godzilla. He's like, oh, it's Slutzilla. Oh,
Slutzilla.
With Godzilla as She-Hulk, we have a new movie.
There it is. There it is. Marvel, contact us.
I just can't.
And have you guys seen the mashup trailers of Pacific Rim versus Godzilla?
No, I haven't, but it sounds spectacular. I'm gonna hit it up.
I'd watch that movie so many times.
Pacific Rim was a good film, and so it's nice to see the genre come back. But even with Godzilla, I felt, even if you didn't feel like it was a Godzilla film in that it wasn't as campy, I felt the camp came from the fact that the film felt like a love letter to Godzilla. I mean, the film gives that feel of he's this sort of avenging angel. You don't get this whole, oh my God, it's Godzilla, we gotta run. Like, yeah, people are running and people are scared, but by the end of the film, you're just like everyone's like cheering for Godzilla. Like, it feels like a love letter to Godzilla. And so, I don't know, I kind of like the campiness of that feel to it. And that's where I felt it was campy.
Now, do you feel this movie did so well because it was a good story? Or do you feel that this movie did so well because there was absolutely zero Matthew Broderick in this film?
It was the Matthew Broderick. It's Godzilla. Everyone's going to take their kids to see Godzilla. Everyone's going to go see Godzilla. It's Godzilla.
Yeah, it's the history. I mean... It's a classic, or the old one is obviously a classic that thousands and millions and billions of people have seen. So obviously they'd want to expose their kids to a newer version to share something that they love with them.
Okay. And on that topic, before the weekend was done, just for how amazing that movie did, they had already greenlit a sequel.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
So, from both of you, which monster would you like to see in the sequel?
I really have no idea. I haven't seen the first one yet, so I really can't comment on that.
I mean, I think everyone's gonna say like Mothra would be like
I want motherfucking Rodan. I'm sorry. Like,
Motherfucking Rodan.
motherfucking Rodan. It's gotta be Rodan.
I think he would be a good for like the 3 off. Like if they do a trilogy, like finish the 3 off with him. But there were a lot of throwbacks to Mothra in the film.
Mothra was actually in the film.
Yeah.
There's just a little cutaway scene where they show like the life cycle of a moth, and the moth picture was Mothra's design.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
And there was in a tank like where the kid had been keeping like a moth, I guess, and its name was Mothra. Like it had Mothra as the name of the character. So if that was supposed to be in a quarantine zone where there was allegedly supposed to be radiation fallout, if there had been any fallout there, they could easily segue that into that's how Mothra was created, and he was just in a giant cocoon that nobody noticed, I guess.
They're already making references to him in the first movie. That probably is, going to lend itself to him being in the second one.
Well, given the fact that this movie was, as Sam said, more of a love letter to Godzilla, when they did do Godzilla versus Mothra, Mothra was the good guy. Like, Mothra beat Godzilla, and... Oh, I'm sorry. I spoiled that 40 year old
Okay, that movie's been out for, like, ever.
I don't know, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert from 40 years ago. Yeah, Mothra was cast in the light of a good guy, in the role of a good guy, and it's been pretty much that way. Now, I personally would like them to go back to one of the sequels and just do Godzilla versus King Kong.
That would be great.
I'd watch that forever.
Great.
And, well, I mean, I don't know if I want Peter Jackson to direct it, but if they bring it back to the island, yes. Because Peter's got a good way of creating a world and then bringing you into it and immersing you into it. I don't know how well he would do with an urban setting. I don't think his track record lends itself to that. But, yeah, no, I think that a King Kong versus Godzilla it would sell out at the box office even better than this one, I think, because then you've got 2 big names.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking double dipping there, so I think it would do phenomenal. I think we've started an age of at least a trilogy. I'm going to give it a trilogy because, again, they blew away the box office.
Yeah. And we had one other topic we wanted to discuss. Just recently, they finally announced the name for the Batman Superman movie.
Ugh.
And not only is it going to be, instead of World's Finest, which is what people were leaning towards, it's going to be Batman, not versus, Batman v Superman, and Dawn of Justice. What do you think about this title?
Sounds campy and stupid.
Your thoughts?
Dawn of Justice is clearly meant to be a reference to a segue into a Justice League film. I mean, it's Dawn of Justice literally is saying beginning of the Justice League. So they're trying to go that way, which is interesting because they've specifically stated that they have no plans to have a cohesive universe in their cinema as they do as Marvel does.
They actually did announce that the sequel to this movie would be the Justice League.
But they've also stated that it won't necessarily have as much continuity in regards to the Batman films. I think they're completely, if not retconning the Batman films that just recently happened. They're at least rebooting,
They are.
So I feel like they're still not doing what Marvel has done, and they will never do what Marvel has done, but they're going in that direction. It's not going to work.
I feel like they're making a poor decision by not opening up to the whole universe. I mean, you can only remake Batman so many times.
But they'll keep doing it.
Exactly, and a new generation will get to see a new Batman. But I mean, come on, come up with something new. Give us more people to look at.
Like Wonder Woman, like a Wonder Woman film,
or a Flash film, or give Lois Lane her own film. She had her own fucking comics. Give her her own film. I'd watch that. Just a lady typing and can't spell words.
Anyone more than just Superman and Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I mean, yes, guys, we get it. Those are your 2 strongest characters. They're the 2 most popular characters on the planet.
I mean, Wonder Woman's a strong character too.
Mm-hmm.
She's a huge character. I mean, even people that don't really read comics know about Wonder Woman, and there's not been a movie about her. And now we have freaking David Goyer talking crap about She-Hulk, and who knows what he's going to do with her in her first cinematic debut.
In fact, we actually do have a photo of Gal Gadot on the set of Batman Superman. Very, very risque outfit. I can clearly see why they're going with a Wonder Slut in this. I'm sorry, that was just me making fun of David Goyer. I really hope that she is portrayed very well in this film because Diana is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's the photo. Oh, isn't that great? Oh, we love it. I think that about wraps it up for this episode of Panel to Panel. I've been Nick Raffio. It's been Jess Dingman. Samantha Patron. We'll see you next episode.